Welcome to rSlash Am I the Butthole, where OP wins the lottery. Am I the butthole for telling my wife that we either share our lotto winnings or we separate and I get half anyways? My wife and I are extremely fortunate to have won a decent amount of money from a lotto recently. It wasn't the top prize, but it was enough to pay off our sizable mortgage and still have some left over for vacations. The mortgage was by far our biggest weekly cost, and with that gone, we could both comfortably cut our hours back at work to only school hours and spend some more time with our kids. This was always a daydream that we spoke about when we bought lotto tickets. I assumed this is what we would both do. When we got the money and paid off our house, everything almost immediately turned bad. My wife started talking about how amazing it's going to finally be not having to work anymore. I was blindsided by this. Even with the mortgage gone, we would still have to work at least school hours to keep our current standard of living. And on my salary alone, things would be tight. I asked if she was serious, and she said, of course. It was her ticket, and she gets to decide. This is BS because we both bought lotto tickets before, and when we moved in together, we only bought one because two seemed like a waste of money. I tried to reason with her, say that she could use some of the extra to take unpaid leave here and there, but she needs to keep her job. When I said, if I'm only working school hours, she absolutely flipped and started accusing me of being a gold digger and ruining this for her. How she deserved it after working so much of her life. I asked her for a pause because I was honestly afraid. She's never been like this before. The next few days, we tried to have this conversation again, but she didn't budge an inch. And when she said, well, it doesn't matter now because I'm putting in my notice at work, I lost it and told her I'm not going through with this. If she's not going to share the winnings, which is under both of our names, I'll divorce her and get half through the house and therefore half the winnings anyways. This started another screaming match where she continued to call me a gold digger. How is the person who's still willing to work a gold digger, but the person who doesn't want to work is not the gold digger? I'm absolutely exhausted and lost. I feel like my wife has been replaced by an imposter. I would have preferred not winning if I knew this was going to happen. This top reply from Jolly Engineer. The good news is that you can afford the divorce. The bad news is that the attorneys will be going on your vacation. Also, we have a little bit of insight on how much money it was. Similar Corner says, not the butthole. You may have been able to quit your job in the 1980s, but unless you won millions, then there's no way that she doesn't need to work. OP says, it was definitely not millions, lol. So we can infer from that it's probably $1.5 million or less. Just shot in the dark, I would guess probably around like $800K to $1 million. And yeah, if you spend the bulk of that on your mortgage, then you don't really have enough left over to live on forever. OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your wife 2.5 out of 5 buttholes. I think probably if things just settle down and she kind of, talks to an accountant, maybe she can see the light again, because I think she's kind of like drunk off of her winnings. Though it is possible she's just actually secretly a scumbag and now she's finally showing her true colors. I guess we'll never know unless OP posts an update. Am I the butthole for not telling my wife that my cousin is insanely wealthy? I'm a 31-year-old guy and my wife is 34. My cousin is a 33-year-old woman and her husband is 35. My cousin and her husband own a fairly large farm, and that's my cousin's pride and joy. Not one single person was surprised when she bought it. Her husband is a pipe welder and makes good money as well. My cousin and her husband are well known in the community and very well respected because they do a lot for the community. With all that said, when she was in her early 20s, she won a ton of money. I'm talking FU kinds of money. At the moment, she made it so that all the kids, including any children I may have in the family, will be able to go to college, and she paid for her siblings' educations. She's used it for the community, but what she's done with it didn't even make a dent in it. My cousin is insanely wealthy. Her place is paid off, and her husband's income along with the farm income pays for pretty much everything. So the money she won isn't really touched much other than for her charity work and if they need some sort of specialized equipment. They do have a very nice home, but if you saw them just out and about, you wouldn't know it at all. They look very normal. She drives a Bronco her husband gifted her when she had her most recent baby, or the farm truck that looks like it's been to hell a few times. My wife and I have been together for 3 years, married for a year and a half. My wife is a nurse practitioner, and she's in a specialty field, so she makes very good money, and I work in aviation. I make about the same as she does. We're well off compared to most people in our area, but we aren't even close to what my cousin is. My cousin makes more money than me and my wife with just her farm. Plus, she has money from her husband's job and her winnings. So my wife is very prideful. She likes to make sure everyone knows that she made it. She has a very nice car and likes to bring up how much she makes in nearly every conversation. She always wants the best of the best, and I try to give that to her. 99% of my family cannot stand my wife, but they're too nice to say anything, and I love her, so they just deal with it. Recently, another one of my cousins got married, and she got married at my rich cousin's house. They have a huge barn and a nice pond, so they basically cleaned out the barn for the wedding. It was beautiful. That was the first and only time that my wife has been to my cousin's house. She always thought that my cousin just had a little hobby farm, and for some reason, she thought they were poor. I didn't know she thought they were poor. Most of our vegetables, meat, and eggs come from my cousin, but I normally get it from her myself. Anyways, now my wife is pissed that I embarrassed her, and I should have told her that my cousin was rich. I didn't really think about something like that. I just assumed she knew because she's from here. It's not like it was a secret that my cousin paid for all the upgrades to the school and matched the donations for the community to build a park. There's a huge banner on the park fence for her husband's business and her farm, along with all the other businesses that donated to it. We pass by that park all the time. It's become an argument because I pretty much told my wife she embarrassed herself and she should stop treating everyone like they're poor. There are several people in our community that make as much or more than we do. She just doesn't see that, and they don't flaunt it like she does. So, am I the butthole for not telling her? Am I the butthole for telling her that she embarrassed herself? So, it's totally fine for your wife to embarrass other people by flexing her wealth on them, but when people flex their wealth on your wife, suddenly then it's a problem? Opie, I'm with your family on this. Your wife sounds insufferable. Frankly, your cousin's financial situation is none of your wife's business. I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your wife 1.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for refusing to let my brother's family stay with me after they lost their home? I'm a 34-year-old guy, and I own a modest 3-bedroom house that I bought 5 years ago. I live alone and use one bedroom as my home office. I work from home full-time, and the other as a guest room/hobby space where I keep my music equipment and gaming setup. My brother is 38 and his wife is 36, and they recently lost their home due to financial issues. They have 3 kids, a 12-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, and a 7-year-old girl. Their financial problems stem from a series of poor decisions. My brother lost his good-paying job 2 years ago after repeatedly showing up late, then bounced between jobs while his wife worked part-time. They kept their kids in expensive private schools and activities they couldn't afford, refused to downsize their large house, and ignored my parents and my advice about budgeting. Eventually, they couldn't keep up with their mortgage payments and were foreclosed on. When they lost their home, they asked if they could stay with me for just a few months until they get back on their feet. Here's where I might be the butthole. I said no. My reasons. 1, my house is simply too small for 6 people. They need to take over my entire living space. 2, I need my home office for work, and I can't work effectively with 3 kids running around. 3, I value my peace and quiet, and frankly, I don't want my life turned upside down. 4, their few months could easily turn into a year or more based on their financial history. 5, my parents offered to let them stay in their larger home, but they refused because they don't want to live by my parents' rules. Instead of letting them stay, I offered to pay for a hotel for 2 weeks and help them find an affordable apartment. I also offered to cover their security deposit. My brother exploded, calling me selfish and saying I have plenty of space and I'm choosing things over family. My parents are torn. They understand my position, but think that I could make it work temporarily. Since then, my brother's family moved in with my parents, despite not wanting to earlier. And I'm getting constant texts from extended family about how I abandoned my brother in his time of need. My brother's wife is posting passive-aggressive things on social media about finding out who your real family is during hard times. So, am I the butthole for not letting them stay with me? All these concerned relatives who think that your brother deserves a free place to stay? Well then, why don't you do it? People just love to tell everyone else what to do, but refuse to take their own advice. OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your brother and his family 2 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for telling my sister-in-law to get out of my daughter's baby shower? I'm a 47-year-old woman, and I have a 25-year-old daughter. She's currently 26 weeks pregnant with her second child, a girl. Her first child, Philip, was stillborn 2 years ago at 38 weeks, a little boy. When she lost him, she asked us to take apart the nursery before she got home and get rid of the baby equipment. She saved his baby book, his ultrasound photos, and the outfit she planned to bring him home in, along with a lock of his hair in a memory box. She had a baby shower for Philip when she was pregnant, but her grief around his death was so strong that she couldn't handle having the nursery and baby things. We offered to return the baby shower gifts to the givers. Most kindly refused and asked us to donate the items, except my husband's sister, Rachel, who's 43. She made a huge deal out of my daughter being hysterical and constantly loudly talked about how ridiculous it was to take apart the nursery. We kept Rachel away from my daughter and only allowed her to return to family functions when she promised to stop bringing it up. We recently held a baby shower for my daughter's new baby girl. Rachel, along with the rest of my husband's female relatives, was invited. She kept making quiet remarks to everyone that we were tacky for having a baby shower for a second child. But since she didn't get near my daughter, I ignored it. When my daughter began opening gifts, it hit the fan. She loudly said, "If you hadn't torn Philip's nursery apart and gotten rid of everything, you wouldn't be here begging for presents for this baby." Jesus Christ, wow. My daughter froze and just stared off into space. Tears started running down her face. I just said, "Rachel, please leave." She refused and started arguing with me. I took her presents out of the pile, walked to the door, and threw it out. I yelled, "Get out, now!" And my husband came into the room and asked what happened. His mom told him what happened, and my husband physically picked up his sister and put her down outside the door. Now the family is divided over whether I should have yelled at her to get out and thrown out her present. Am I the butthole? Then OP posted an update. We're having a family meeting without Rachel while my daughters and their partners are away at a hot springs this weekend. The meeting went well. My husband and I gave a brief summary of what happened, backed up by witnesses. The relatives that couldn't make the shower are now aware of what happened. The family consensus is that Rachel is unequivocally to blame and should not be allowed to be around my daughter or their kids. Other people in the family brought up issues they've had with her in the past along similar lines, especially involving pregnancy and kids. Rachel will no longer be included in large family gatherings. Those who want to continue a relationship with her will do so on their own and have been informed that advocating for Rachel to be forgiven and included or feeding her information about me, my husband, or our kids and grandchildren will result in us going no contact with them as well. My mother-in-law has apologized profusely for making the remarks about being sad that she won't have both her children under her roof for the holidays anymore. We've accepted her apology because her feelings are valid, and this is sad for her. I can't even figure out what Rachel's problem is here. That she felt scammed that she had to give 2 gifts for 2 separate baby showers? But isn't it normal to have a baby shower for each individual baby anyways? So what exactly is her issue? But whatever that issue is, why would she want to indulge that negative feeling and yell at a grieving mother who lost her child? What? OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving Rachel 3 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for refusing to give up my college fund to help my parent with their debt? I just started college this year. Ever since I was little, my grandparents set up a college fund for me, and it's the only reason I can afford school without taking on massive debt. My parents always knew about it, and it was always meant for my education. Recently, my parents have been struggling financially due to bad investments and overspending. They sat me down and asked me to use my college fund to help them pay off their debts. They said that since they raised me, it's only fair that I help them now that they're struggling. I said no. I told them I was grateful for everything they've done, but this money was specifically for my education, and I wasn't going to throw away my future. They got upset and said that I was being selfish and ungrateful. My mom even cried, saying she never thought her own daughter would turn her back on them. Now, my parents barely talk to me. I feel horrible, but at the same time, I don't think that I should have to sacrifice my future because of their financial mistakes. You are not the butthole OP. What your parents are effectively trying to do is just transfer their debt to you. Because after you spend your college money, you'll be stuck with student loans, which never go away, by the way. That was rSlash Am I the Butthole. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.